When you don't have KPIs, when you don't have effective project management, what would you say would be your biggest, best tip for our listeners who want to take their business beyond seven figures?
Not everybody working at 8 and 9 figure. Most of them have cultures that I actually don't want to live in. But the teams that I really admire who have scaled beyond 7 figures have gotten clear on what they tolerate.
All right. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. So today, bringing a guest, a friend of mine, MacKenzie. He's a genius when it comes to project management, organizing thought, helping companies become more productive, more profitable, and so forth. The reason why I want to bring him into this call is because as visionaries, we've got a lot of great ideas. We tend to get our fingers in multiple different projects. As the company grows, we get more clients, we get more teams, we get a lot of things going on. Then what ends up happening is we start becoming less efficient. Our profitability begins to get lower. Sometimes we miss deadlines. One of the biggest headaches for any entrepreneur is mismanaged expectations. And that causes a problem. It affects your reviews, your lifetime customer value, your retention, your recurring revenue, all of that other fun stuff, right? Project management is something that's it's not talked about too often, especially when it comes to business podcasts and whatnot. But when it comes to operations of your business, you want more predictable profits and all that other fun stuff, it's something you got to pay attention to. So I brought Gray on because not only does he work with a great platform, he works with ClickUp, but he's also the highest rated. So if we're going to talk about somebody who knows their stuff, we want to talk about the guy who's actually the highest rated in ClickUp right now. He's worked with thousands and thousands of agencies. So without further ado, Gray, welcome to the show, buddy.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Fun to have some time to catch up.
Yeah, for sure. So project management for some agencies, especially, as they start moving up to that, $1 million mark and so forth, revenue mark, oftentimes they see it as kind of like an expense. It's like, they see it like, it's more of an aggravation. They like focusing so much time on filling the top end of the funnel and getting more new clients and focusing on sales that the operations part, a lot of times, that's a drag, that's boring. But as I've known you and I've seen your company grow and the different things that you do for companies, why isn't it boring? Why is it exciting? Why is it something that people should be paying attention to?
You've got all these things that are like costs either way. Like you're already doing it, whether you think you're project managing or not. You're doing something to manage projects, and it's either going really well and projects are going smoothly and on budget and clients are happy, or it's not going that well. And at least one of those things, like the opposite's happening. I see this all the time. I'm sure you see this too with entrepreneurs. We're terrified of micromanaging anybody because that's the whole reason we're entrepreneurs is we don't want to be micromanaged. So we just kind of like project how we're wired onto everyone else on the team. And then we're like, we don't want to micromanage anybody. And then, you wind up like figuring out nobody's getting this done. Nobody's hitting my standard because you're not communicating any of that. So the same thing's true. Like there are founders who do hit the $1 million mark and are too obsessed with client services, project management. Like they're not excited enough about sales. Most of the folks who get there, they've gotten there because they are good at or have really leaned into the sales side of things. And so they naturally kind of undervalue what happens from a project management and operational perspective. And then you get to a point where it just becomes the most expensive. You're good at sales, but you're constantly turning folks over. You can't outsell what is happening from a client services and project management perspective. So that's why it's exciting. Like if you want to scale beyond $1 million, $2 million, like you've got to really invest in how you deliver those services and infrastructure there if you don't want to constantly be burning out your people internally and churning and burning, with clients as well.
So when you think about it, when you don't have KPIs, when you don't have effective project management, oftentimes, what happens is you work with teams and the teams are going to constantly say, I'm busy. And then the way that they're going to justify their employment is just by talking about just how busy they are. And then eventually they're going to get to the point where they start talking about, you need to hire more people. And so I'm busy. They try to convince you that you need to hire more people and you see work getting done. But the numbers in the work getting done, this is where there's some actual misalignment. It's an agency that I was talking with not too long ago. They're a client of ours, and they were saying how a project came in the door and they were looking to have a banner designed. The client already provided the copy, And when she looked at the way that the team operated, they brought 12 members of their team to discuss what was going on in the banner design. And that's when she realized, like, wait a minute, there's an incredible amount of waste here. Something actually needs to change. So it's not only holding the team accountable, making sure that the team is doing what they're doing, but if you're giving a bid on a particular project, or you've quoted a particular project and you're saying, this is going to take 12 hours here and 14 hours here. If you don't have the right project management in place, then it's impossible for you to understand, what percentage of the team is doing billable hours and measuring utilization. How well did we quote the job? Are they doing what they should be doing? Do we have the right team? At what point do we need to start hiring and bringing in more people? So it's like, this is the type of stuff that, you can bring in the money, but if you're going to keep money, like, the project management is where you're actually going to keep money in the bank, and this is why it's like so important. I worked with another client, another agency, for over 10 years. He was kind of doing things in the dark. As we began to shine light on what he was doing, what he realized was, for the past 10 years, because he had multiple different services, every time he sold a website build, he actually lost money. For 10 years, he lost money on a website build. He would have been better off and would have made a heck of a lot more money if he never, ever sold a website build, because he just didn't have the right project management in place.
It's a common story. Like, it's not uncommon at all to go in, finally get to profitability metrics by service line and figure out we're losing money. And there are times where it totally makes sense to lose money on a specific service line that might, like, maybe websites are the way in, but you look at the percentage of time that that's happening to a team and the percentage of time that that's an intentional decision, and that, like, I'm totally fine with it. If you're running your business, you get to decide how you want to run your business. If you want to lose money selling websites, that's fine. I'd feel a lot better if that was an intentional decision because of the lifetime value of that customer and the other services that brought you. Obviously, I'd prefer not to lose money at all. Like, I'd like to see, and there's no reason you don't look at 8 and 9 figure firms, and you've worked with a bunch of them. There are very few teams at that level that have true loss leaders where they're really not profitable intentionally with a service line. And push back on that if you've seen other data, but I have not. I've looked for it. I thought, boy, I see this a lot with small teams. It's not usually intentional, but then when I push on, hey, why are we still delivering this? Like, let's look at, well, either got to change pricing, we got to get more efficient on delivering it, or we should cut the service altogether. They're like, no, we got to keep it this way. We can't sell it for more expensive. We've got the right people doing it, and they're fine with it. And so I thought, oh, maybe this is scales, and I just have not seen it. I don't see that really established, well-run businesses are actually in the service space are consistently running loss leaders where they're intentionally taking a hit on something just to earn some other business.
That makes sense. Now, when you think of a CEO, and the companies are very dependent on the CEO, right? And so it's a real frustration for many CEOs when they feel like, I just don't know what's going on in my business. Like, I don't know what's getting done. I don't know what these people are working on, especially in virtual environments. I don't know what these people are working on. I don't know what's getting done. And, then they start creating these stories in their head, like, well, I'm busting my ass. I'm working, 60 hours a week. And, I don't know what my team is working on. I feel like I'm carrying all the weight. Having, great project management actually begins to clarify all of those assumptions. And so, that part is really important. You get to see what everybody's doing, and are they on schedule? Are they not on schedule, and so forth. There's transparency in the different activities. It's also really great because when we talk about something like, this is just going to be maybe a bad example, but let's just say write a book. If you're going to say, hey, we're going to put out there, we're going to write a book. Well, without any type of project management, the task is, let's write a book. But with proper project management, it's going to be like, all right, we got to come up with a theme. We've got to outline the chapters. We got to figure out, who are we going to interview, and when are we going to write the chapters, and who's going to write the chapters, and who's going to do the graphics. And then at what point do we have to interview publishers? And it's like, all of a sudden, then you realize, wait a minute, writing a book, it takes 50 different steps. And then you don't have to be the one responsible for all those steps. And you begin to delegate, and things begin to happen, and so forth. It's running a business. You want to create a marketing funnel? Well, okay, there's many different pieces of a marketing funnel between copy and website and graphics and media and all this other fun stuff. Like, throw that out there. And then you create frameworks that can be replicated and duplicated over and over and over and over again. I just don't know how people run a business if they don't do this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you think of like all the people, even who are listening right now, who said like I'm going to write a book, and then a book drags on. Like most book deadlines are missed. People who said this is the year I'm going to write a book, and then don't actually produce a book. And if you just say write a book, that seems like a pretty easy, it's a pretty easy concept at first. But you're exactly right. If we don't pull out, hey, what are the milestones? What are the deliverables that add up? What are the tasks that go into each of these deliverables? The teams who actually take the time to break that plan down and say, oh, here's the full, like, here's what the whole elephant looks like now. Yeah, we've got like, and here's our plan for eating it a bite at a time. The teams who do that and then you get a chance to reevaluate, do we really want to roll forward with it? Like, is this an unachievable plan for us? Are way more likely to hit the deadline on that thing than the folks who are just like, oh, it's just a book. How hard can it possibly be? And the number of times that I hear from a CEO, an agency owner somewhere, like, how hard can it be? We just need to onboard the client better. So 100% we do. And onboarding sounds maybe simple to you because you are the entrepreneur. At each step, I don't have a plan, but I'm going to figure out, I know enough of this loosely in my head. Like I'd figure this out sequentially. The people you hired are working for you for a reason, and they would love to have what that vision looks like. They may even have a perfectly good, maybe even a better way to do it, but it's not going to meet your expectations. There's no way if they're shooting in the dark. And so breaking that plan down is the only way to scale anything when it comes to work with people, or that, whatever degree you want to automate stuff as well. It's impossible to automate. Like, sure, you can go to ChatGPT or Grok and say, write a book. And that's totally different than if you give it this, here's this whole plan, and the outcome on the other side it's the same thing. The amount of clarity that you give into the plan, into the details, into what you want from the outcome is going to impact, more than any other factor, what that outcome is going to look like.
Well, you're right, because now you brought up a few things. Not only is it just having a clear plan of what's actually getting done, metaphorically speaking. So I live in Jupiter, Florida right now. Let's say I was going to drive up to Boston, Boston, Massachusetts. The way that most small business operate is they go, you know what? We're going to drive up to Boston. It's like, okay, well, how long is that going to take you? Well, it should probably take us, maybe 24 hours to drive up there. All right, cool. So they get in the car and they just take off and they drive. And they might even set their GPS and they take off and they drive. But here's what they're not planning for. They're not planning for traffic. They're not planning for, well, you're not going to do 24 hours straight. At some point, you're going to need to spend the night. So where do you need to be at what time? And, where are you going to spend the night? And did you make sure that there were hotels actually available so that you don't find yourself sleeping off the side of the highway? And, all of this planning that has to do, is there a hurricane coming in? Like there's all this planning that needs to get done. So that just helps to minimize the headaches so that you can spend more of your time as a CEO being that visionary and focusing in on your zone of genius instead of just flying off the seat of your pants. Now, Corey, one thing that I'll tell you, this is where I get to share sort of where my greatest weakness is when it comes to this stuff. I'm a very, very strong visionary. I admittedly am much weaker when it comes to execution. So the hardest thing for me, my team uses project management software, no problem. The hardest thing for me is myself to use project management. The hardest thing for me is to manage my day through project management. So what plans do you see for the CEO itself? And how would you address somebody like me to be able to plan my day, to use it in a way that is extremely valuable and productive? And so talk to the CEO. What's the best way for the CEO to leverage this?
Hey, if you're listening to the Beyond Seven Figures podcast, you may already have a great business and you've cracked that elusive 7-figure mark. But let's be honest, building a business is one thing, but scaling it to true, lasting profitability is a whole other ballgame. That's why I'm excited to share something special with you. It's the Predictable Profits Playbook written by Charles Gourdette. So go now to beyond7figures.com.
So the way that my brain always works is just like, what are the options first? And just kind of lay out, okay, there's trade-offs to whatever solution. There's no perfect solution to any problem. There's just a range of solutions. And then we're just trying to figure out what fits best for the personality and the situation involved. So one option is that a CEO spends zero time inside ClickUp or whatever the project management tool is. and the rest of the team spends all their time working in it. And that can work fine. The trade-off then is nobody has any idea what the CEO does, and when they need him to do something or her to do a task related to something, they've got a message somewhere else that's kind of an invisible workload that we're not finding. So that will break down at some point in time. And the question is really like, is that breakdown worth it enough? CEO's super happy they don't have to put anything in there. Projects get slow and behind, like that'll be frustrating. But that's one extreme end. The other extreme end is like you force yourself into all your weakness and say, no, I'm going to be as disciplined and do this all. And I've seen some people muscle through and do it and build that skill set. But that's not the majority of, like, that does not, most people don't have, most strong visionaries who are really, really skilled in that area don't have the staying power to muscle through and just be like, yeah, I'm gonna lean into this thing. So then I think the other, like on the range of outcomes, one opportunity is just say, I'm never going to touch the tool. I'm going to work with one outsourced brain for myself. So my executive assistant is going to be the go-between. They'll update everything I do in the project management system, and they'll be my translation layer. And you've got to pay more for somebody else to help do some of that admin work. But that's worked well for a number of teams. And then one of the key points so we've got this project management methodology. It's supposed to be just like drop dead simple project management methodology. Here's the key like principles that we need to follow to work together. And I'm totally fine. I don't care that any team specifically follows the Zen Pilot methodology. I care that teams have a methodology like, hey, what have we agreed upon in terms of how we're going to work together? So one of our principles is we're going to plan for the unplanned. And that means if we're thinking about utilization, we're thinking about how would I plan out workload going into a week for team members? The way I'm going to plan for a podcast producer whose job is to manage 10 different podcasts and produce, their work is pretty predictable. The episodes are already recorded. They've got this amount of production work that they need to do, post-production, promotion, coordinating back and forth. I may be able to schedule them out if they're working a 40-hour week. I may be able to schedule them out in our project management system for 35 to 40 hours worth of work going into the week. It's pretty predictable. Then we look at a visionary, and visionaries are great at what they do because there's just a natural level of unpredictability. It's what gives them life. It's what allows them to thrive. And so you may know going into a week, 25, 50% of my time, I cannot allocate to anything. Like it's just to be reactive, to take stuff as it comes in. They're great at living in flow and saying, oh, you threw that new idea at me. That was totally not on the plan for today. But yeah, I'm pumped about this right now. Like visionaries are excellent at harvesting their energy and turning it into immediate action. And they're terrible at predicting what they're going to be excited about 5 days out from now. So if I was planning out work in the project management system and I loaded you down with 40 hours worth of like, here's very prescriptive tasks, my podcast producer loves that schedule. I know exactly what I'm going to be doing Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Friday. And you probably hate that idea of being like, no, don't tell me what I'm going to do on Thursday. Like that's 4 days away from now. I can do a 180 from what the plan is by Thursday. So I think saying, okay, yeah, there are some predictable. I need you to look at the books for 20 minutes every Friday. Like that's one of the chores that you have to do. And you could agree to that. And so we can plan that out. But I may only be able to predict for you like 10 or 20 hours worth of work. And so only those like, here's the things I absolutely need you to do would actually get planned in. The rest of the time is kind of reserved. So we're saving some margin and some space. And that's a really simple, like it's, I feel almost dumb sometimes explaining that, but that concept or idea has given a lot of entrepreneurs kind of like freedom. It's the first time that they've really processed to say, oh yeah, I do love to do reactive work. I have been planning out everyone else's weeks like in a pretty proactive way. I want this, and this done and ask them to fill in the blanks on the details. But I don't want to live like that. I want room to react more. And I want to work on this book. And if I get on a hot streak and I can spend 16 hours doing that this week, that's great. And if it's a dry week, maybe I'll only do 4 instead of the 8 that we were predicting. I want that freedom. And so just giving themselves permission to say, hey, I'm not going to schedule myself out with a fully prescribed, here's exactly what my week's going to look like. We love seeing those screenshots when people share them online of here's my calendar and here's how full, like every second is booked. And for most visionaries,
that empty calendar. That's what I like seeing it,
That sucks the life out of any real visionary when that's maintained for more than a couple weeks at a time. So I think it's just figuring out like, what is the balance for an individual owner? And then what trade-offs are they willing to accept? If you're super small, we're doing $500,000 in business and we've got 3 people on the team, no problem to put nothing in the project management tool and just Slack through stuff or chat through stuff or email, text through things. That's totally fine. That works at that level. And if you're at 15 people and you're doing $2 million in revenue, like that really sucks for the other 14 people there that nothing's ever in the project management tool. They always have to go message you directly. And it sucks for you too, frankly. So I think you got to figure out what's right for the scale. And at that point, there's plenty of margin there to hire somebody to help you from an administrative perspective.
Now, let's think about it. One of the common problems and challenges that I often see with CEOs is they have a team of 15 or whatever it is, right? And so even if they are using a project tool like ClickUp or whatnot, then the team will turn around and they'll be like, okay, I've got this done. I'm going to assign this now to the CEO. Oh, I'm going to assign this now. I'm going to assign this now. And so this is where the CEOs oftentimes, they just hate working with the project management tools. They fire it up and all of a sudden there are like 20 tasks that are assigned to them, but they have their own roles and responsibilities and they have everything else going. And so they still become the bottleneck because they can't get everything done. And then the project's waiting for a CEO to review and so forth. So how do you address that for teams and where the company's looking to become less dependent on the CEO?
I think the first thing is to just see that as a gift. If people are assigning all this stuff to you, it's not the fault that you're in a project management tool. Like that was happening before. They were just messaging you that stuff. But now you've got visibility into it. So see it first as a gift and be like, whoa, I did not realize that I was getting hit with 30 things a day. No wonder I've been exhausted and feeling kind of burnt out because all this stuff is coming towards me. So that's one, is just understand like the job of any project management platform is to just create visibility for the team. We say clarity all the time. You said transparency earlier, but visibility is a word that comes up probably like 80% of conversations that I have with teams is like, I just need to see what's going on. So I think first be grateful for that visibility because it surfaces and it points out like, oh yeah, this is untenable. We can't keep living like this. Mm-hmm. Any project management world, we're balancing the demand side. Here's what clients want. That's getting routed through account managers, whoever is leading those accounts. And we've got our resources. That's our staff and our contractors and tools, whatever we have, like our resources. And marrying those two things together is how we fulfill the demand that was there. And so there's got to be some rules around who gets to assign work out, like who does that fulfillment work of resourcing to meet the demand. And so those three things all have to be held and pulled together. And another thing, this is one of the reasons I love ClickUp. We have like this workload view in the tool and we can set custom capacities for each person. So like my capacity may be 20 hours a week. And so as people are trying to assign work out, they just get a chance to see what's really on my, like how available am I to take stuff on and have to work kind of within those restraints to push stuff through. And if they need something different, then there's a mechanism for escalating that and saying, hey, what can we, like you need to make the call. What can we reprioritize? But I need this back today. And so I think it's a combination of kind of all those things together to figure out. But I think the biggest thing that I try to help people like just process accurately from a mindset perspective is this is a gift that you're getting visibility into what is draining all your energy. And we need to make some systematic changes to say, no, I cannot be the bottleneck on all these things.
Got it. Now, I know you're a massive fan of ClickUp and there's a lot of different programs out there, right? Asana is a big popular one. A lot of people like to use Trello. Then there's Monday. There's new ones popping up every single day. There's also using good old fashioned Google Sheets and using that for project management. Microsoft has got a tool and so forth. Out of all of these tools, you went all in, built an entire business all around ClickUp. Walk me through why you decided to use ClickUp over and above all of these other ones.
There are a couple principles that were really relevant when we made that decision at the end of 2017 that are not that relevant today. Like other tools have done what ClickUp has done. The one constant has been product velocity. So if we compare like ClickUp and Monday today, as we're recording this, are the two most comparable tools. If we just took all the like Notion's an awesome tool, Asana's really cool. There's these enterprise level tools. Jira has invested a lot. But ClickUp and Monday are the two like most comparable tools if we just went kind of feature for feature today. Product velocity has been true about ClickUp since the beginning. This is the big reason to take a bet on them with Zeb, who's the CEO and founder there, is as deep in the product today as he was when they were building it. Like he has really pushed the pace and they have a culture of ship. That comes with trade-offs. If you want a completely stable piece of software that maybe hasn't been updated in 2 years, like ClickUp's not that platform for you. But if we look at things like AI today in the system, ClickUp's implementation of AI is far ahead of almost any of the other like major tools out there. And Asana has pushed, all the tools have leaned really heavily into this. Part of that is they've all realized, hey, there's a way to monetize this. So yeah, we're going to push super hard into it. But you just stand up kind of Monday's AI feature set today and ClickUp's AI feature set today, and ClickUp is way ahead from that side. And so if that was just a point in time, like, hey, at this point in time, ClickUp's feature set is better, that wouldn't mean that much to me. But knowing the way that the culture's been built and sustained over the last 8 years of, hey, we're going to push super hard on building the best product. We're going to take shots. Some of them will not be right. We'll try this feature set. We'll roll it out in beta. People will complain about it. Like, we'll have to roll back and go do something else. I just think you get a much better platform and much longer staying power if you go all in on, hey, we're not afraid to make some mistakes and we're going to push super hard with product. So that's what I value the most about ClickUp from a like long-term, why I think that's still the best solution to be on. There's some real practical tools that ClickUp has that for a professional service business, like an agency, which is the core, that's the bread and butter, like customer for us, that ClickUp performs really, really well at too. But those are kind of, that sits for me in a bucket kind of below like their commitment to product quality and velocity.
What I love about ClickUp is the exact same thing that I hate about ClickUp at the same time. What I love about ClickUp is they have an extraordinary amount of features. Like, you're really ultimately limited by your imagination when it comes to ClickUp. What I hate about ClickUp is they got so many damn features that, I know that, it's very easy to underutilize that platform because they've got way too many. And you might be the only one I know that is probably utilizing every single feature there because you're the master at it. And then as soon as you feel like the features, then they turn around and they do another, release, and then they add more features. And again, it becomes a little bit overwhelming until you realize you don't need them all. Like, most people have an iPhone, right? We probably only end up using maybe 15% of the features of an iPhone.
I haven't tested this out with anybody before. If I asked you what is like enterprise level, what's the best CRM? Do you have an instant answer?
For enterprise CRM, I would probably say most people are using some type of Salesforce or connection to Salesforce for it.
I think the same thing. So there is a big market I think there's a big market opportunity for other teams. I would say Salesforce too. I think most people would say Salesforce. You can't even look at customized, like you can't even look at Salesforce without spending $50,000 in development costs from some partner out there at a minimum. And so why, like, it's still the best platform out there if you're trying to do all this, customized stuff and you're running in a large scale environment. So I think ClickUp is kind of the same way. Like, there's so much that it can do. It's got the power to do it all. Not everybody needs it. And certainly almost nobody needs all of it, everything that it can do. So I do realize, and this was not intentional as we were like choosing, hey, what software do we want to specialize on top of? But you run into the same thing with Monday or with any of these like really powerful project management tools is either you're going to spend a bunch of time configuring and setting it up to get everything that you want out of it to take advantage of it, or you're going to hire a partner. And so you'll work with someone like ZenPilot to come, like, what does it look like to marry our situation and our goals with the tool to make this all run as smoothly as we can? So I think that's a terrible sales pitch from like, and this is not the ClickUp sales pitch, to be clear. They're not going to tell anybody, hey, you probably need, some expert on the outside to help you really nail this. But the truth with all these tools, and I've seen it because we've helped thousands of teams, and I've talked to thousands more teams who've ripped out whatever tool they have. Like, the average agency switches project management tools every 2 years. That's wild. But the reason is all these tools are saying, hey, we're the easy button. Like, just plug us in and we'll solve all your problems. It's never that. It's always, the tool's a piece of it. Your processes are a piece of it. Your people's habits are a piece of it. And if you don't design a solution to solve for all of those, like, we are spending so much more money on software than we ought to be spending on, like, hey, what are the principles? What's our methodology? What does that look like in this tool? So I think generally, like, 100% agreed with that criticism of ClickUp. And I think it applies to any of the tools that have like all the feature sets that we want, automations, we want comments, we want dependencies, we want all this stuff. And then it's like, boy, it's a lot to keep up with.
Well, it makes sense. When you look at the cost benefit of hiring somebody like ZenPilot to get you streamlined, it really, the ROI is as little as a few weeks, depending on the size of the company, or a month, right? Once you really have it dialed in. So you get the ROI real quick. Even on a marketing and sales side too, HubSpot, more for, if you look at small businesses, would be a CRM that would be the 800-pound gorilla. But again, you look at the way that most people end up using a tool like HubSpot, and they use it to basically send out emails and collect contacts. Like their pipeline isn't set up right. All the other resources, the workflows and everything aren't set up right. And so they have this program because they're like, oh, this is exactly what I need to take my business to the next level. But they don't realize that the software is not actually what's going to take them to the next level. It's how you use and build upon that software and how you basically almost customize it to your specific use. That's where the power comes in, not the software.
Right.
It's how you use it.
That's 100% true. Internal, like the way that the economy is set up is we reward recurring revenue and long-term contracts so much. So software companies, very high gross margin businesses are rewarded so much from a funding perspective that then creates like all the marketing dollars can get spent there. And so that's the message that gets pushed is software will be the cure all. And so at ZenPilot, we'll piggyback off of that and we market hardcore around ClickUp because teams are looking at ClickUp as, oh, this might be the answer to the problem. And then the further that you get into the problem, the more you realize it is all these things. It is the tools, but it's also our processes and it's definitely also the habits of our people. But I think if we, I think the truer look at ZenPilot is like we are really a behavioral change like company, an organizational change company dressed up as a technology consultant. Like the real magic is, can we get all these really talented people at your firm all swimming in the same direction and speaking the same language when it comes to how they deliver their work? And we'll continue to do it only on ClickUp for the time being because I think ClickUp's the best tool for the average agency. And I really want to be specialized so that we can give both here's how an agency should operate and here's the really deep, like technical, really cool solution to help you do that. But at the end of the day, like you could get the same or at least 95% of the impact on any of these platforms that are out there. Like it's not really fundamentally a ClickUp issue.
Now you talked about AI and the way that they've integrated and used AI. Just kind of real quick, what would you say is some of the coolest ways in which you can use AI and ClickUp?
Yeah. So I think anytime you're trying to just quickly build out a plan, then this often when it's like, hey, I just want to roughly see if we did this project for a client, what would this timeline look like? So I'll just not typing, but using voice, just dictate to it. They have their own transcription app, transcribe like, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Charles and I were talking about writing this book together. It's going to be X many pages. Each page is going to have like this, or each chapter is going to have this many steps. Here's the types of people who are involved. Can you plan out, like map out tasks, name all the tasks according to the chapter titles, or just say like chapters and order them for now and plan it out, giving this amount of estimated time over whatever. And it'll actually go and build out all the tasks for you that you requested. Or I might say like apply this book template if it was something that I was already doing. So their AI, they call it Brain. Their Brain feature can just go interface with the tasks directly. So that's been a helpful one for just kind of quickly getting ideas. So each task, I don't think this would be too nerdy. They've got custom fields, basically like custom properties you can attach to each task. So it might be like, t-shirt size would be a classic like custom field example. Well, they have AI-powered custom fields as well. So it could do a summary of all the activity related to that task. So let's say a task represents like, chapter 1 or whatever. And we've written some comments, we've uploaded some stuff, we've tracked some time. You've been in there and tracked time, I've tracked time, and whatever else. We could have a field. We could have a view that shows us each of the chapters and where we are, and an AI summary of each chapter, giving us like the latest up-to-date update on where those all stand. And I can just scan through it. I don't need to go generate it at the time I'm doing it. It'll automatically generate, like keep that updated for me. So it's just really quick to go see updates like that. So there's probably a million other examples, but those are a couple that have been really helpful for teams from the planning perspective. And then from the like, hey, I want to report. I just want to know where do things stand the day to day. Those have been helpful.
Very cool. Now, my favorite question to ask our guests, this is the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. What would you say would be your biggest, best tip for our listeners who want to take their business beyond 7 figures?
Yeah, I think the biggest part of scaling from the teams that I've seen has been like culture is such a, that word can mean so many different things to people. And there's not everybody working at 8 and 9 figure, like beyond 7 figure firms is all happy or has a culture that I admire. Most of them have cultures that I actually don't want to live in. But what almost all of them have done is they've gotten clear on what they tolerate and what they don't. And so I think out of culture, you get what you tolerate and you get what you celebrate, or that's largely how we influence culture. As we say, like we can't control what our culture is, but largely how we influence it. Being really clear on what is the actual standard And by the way, what we tolerate is often different than what we tell people we tolerate. But the teams that I really admire who have scaled beyond 7 figures have gotten clear on what they tolerate and gotten clear on what they celebrate. So if we're going to say like one of our rules or kind of like catchphrases in the Zen pilot methodology is, if it's not in ClickUp, it didn't happen. The idea is if we actually want to have a single source of truth to go find all the activity that we've done, then it's got to get in there. That means nothing if I say it and then I'm totally fine. I'll tolerate people putting work wherever they want to. So if that's truly a line where, hey, it's got to be there, and when it's not, you get called out and there's some consequences for it. And when people do get all their work in there and it's easy to find something, we're shouting out like, hey, this was so easy because you had that updated. We're celebrating that together. That has been super helpful. So anyways, that is probably more advice to me than to anybody else. But that has been hitting me hard here lately, that like in terms of how we build culture, it really boils down to what we tolerate and what we celebrate.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you get what you tolerate. And the hardest thing about that, what you just said, is being consistent with what you say.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a parent. I've got kids. If I tell them something and they go against my word and there's no consequence, then they know, oh, dad doesn't really mean it, right? So then they'll do it again, and instead of taking an inch, they'll take 2, and there's no consequence. Dad doesn't really mean it, but then eventually they take a foot, and all of a sudden there's a consequence. It's like, wait, I don't understand. Why am I getting in trouble now?
Right.
And then it creates, a bigger cultural issue. And so when you're intentional, and so much of what you and I have talked about that this entire episode is really being intentional with our activities and so forth, our actions. But if you say, this is what I'm willing and unwilling to tolerate, then you have to have the courage to actually stay strong to that and hold
Definitely
people.
true. The one thing I've learned through parenting, and I mean, in any leadership position, like coaching a high school baseball team, raising 4 kids, building a business, getting to see other businesses, is you definitely don't want to write checks that you won't cash. So don't say you're not going to tolerate something if you don't. I think way fewer rules is appropriate, and you want them all to pretty much be principle based so that we can relate it back. So we're going to respect everyone in our family. So when you reach over and you took that cookie off of your brother's plate, we don't have a rule that's don't steal cookies off of people's plate. There's too many rules to try to keep up with. The principle we're coming back to is, hey, you did not respect him. Like that was his, and you took his property. And so that has been really helpful in all of those situations. And the idea is I want to reinforce, in that case for kids, the principle is respect. So what's the heart behind it? I don't want them to memorize, I can't take a cookie, I can't take a carrot, I can't take a piece of bread. Like, I don't care that they can memorize 50 different rules. They're probably talented and may be able to, but at some point that doesn't scale and doesn't keep working. So I think fewer rules, relate behavior back to those principles. And then if you're going to say it, then you actually have to mean it. So I'm not going to make a rule like don't climb on the back of the couch, because sometimes it is really fun to climb on the back of the couch. I'm not always going to like disallow that. And so I'd rather just not have a rule that's sometimes kept and sometimes not kept.
Yeah. And this is where a lot of people misunderstand the difference between culture and values,
Oh yeah. Great point.
And, there's one thing about values, like, we're fun loving, blah, 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 right? Values. But what culture is a set of rules and behaviors. And it lets people know, like, you will be promoted and rewarded to the extent which you're in alignment with culture, and you'll be removed or demoted to the extent that you're out of alignment with culture. And so that's when people think about culture, they have to understand there's a difference between culture and values.
Yeah. Yep.
Now people want to learn more about you and the work that you do. Where do we send them?
Yeah. Zenpilot.com is the website. And then LinkedIn is the second place to find me.
Got it. So you can go to Gray MacKenzie, and that's Gray MacKenzie, and you can check him out over there on LinkedIn, or Zen Pilot. And, he's worked with over 3,000 different agencies. He's the most trusted ClickUp partner in the world, which is why I wanted to bring him on today for this podcast. Now, for additional tips, strategies, and information to grow your business faster, more predictably, and less dependent on you, you can also check us out at predictableprofits.com. Again, that's predictableprofits.com. This is Charles Gadet with my friend Gray MacKenzie, and I will see you in another episode.